I shifted homes within a few months of buying my road bike, and I was wondering how to transport it to my new place. I considered riding it all the way there, but I wasn't convinced I would be able to fit it inside my car. Thankfully though, it wasn't as tough as I thought it would be. And that's why I thought that I should make this video, because a lot of people have this question: can a bike fit inside a car? And if so, then how do you do it? So first things first, as a general rule, most bicycles, whether they're a mountain bike, whether it's a road bike or any other type of bike, will fit quite easily inside your car. The average length of a bike is about 69 inches, 70 inches, which can fit inside even some of the smaller hatchback cars. You may, however, have to disassemble the wheels in some cases. So in the rest of this video, I'll tell you a few ways to fit a bicycle inside your car, as well as share a few practical tips so that you don't damage your bike while you're doing so. So, quick side note, unless this is just a one-off thing, like it was for me, you will likely need a more convenient way to transport your bike. So if you're doing this regularly, perhaps you like to go on biking trips, and perhaps you need to transport your bike in your car quite often. In that case, I will recommend that you get a hitch, you get a rack for your bike. I'll create a separate video on that, but if you're interested, I'll put the link to my article in this video's description, and you can have a look at that, where I go into the different types of bike racks and give you recommendations on which ones you might want to buy. All right, so back to the main topic. So how do you fit your bike in your car without taking it apart? Well, the average size of your bike, like I said, would be anywhere between 65-70 inches, roughly in the higher 60s. So 69-70 inches is roughly the size of your bike. Then if you look at the different types of vehicles, whether it's a hatchback, whether it's a minivan, it's a sedan, it's a SUV, all of them are going to have an interior width of roughly 63 to 75 inches. So I've done a breakdown of this in my article, which I'll put in the description for this video, and you can have a look. And so essentially, unless it's a hatchback, in most cases, if you have a larger car than a hatchback, you should be able to put your bike in without having to take it apart. Most, you might have to take off the front wheel or the rear wheel. The front wheel is a bit easier, by the way, so just do the front wheel. If it's a hatchback, perhaps you might have to take off both wheels if you wanted to really transport your bike. So have a look at my article, have a look at that breakdown if you're interested in that. But the second bit that I want to talk you through is how do you fit your bike inside the car. So firstly, there are a couple of ways. The first one is you place the bike in the rear footwell area. So if you have a large SUV, that would be easy. You could place your bike in the rear seat area as well, if there's no one else that you need to transport, if there's just you perhaps, or someone sitting in the passenger seat. And a few things that you should think about though, if you're transporting it in the rear footwell area, it's pretty easy. You can simply rest the wheels on the mats in the rear footwell and fit the bike inside. You may need to turn the handlebars a little bit so that the bike fits completely. But I would also recommend laying down a sheet or a blanket on the rear seat and the mats before you put the bike in, because it does become very dirty. And so I did this a couple of times with my car back in Delhi, and it just ended up being really, really messy. For instance, and then there's small things like my road bike's chain rubbed off the car seat's leather, and it left a grease mark. So I had to wipe it down quite a bit later. And I actually got ugly scolding from my dad as well. He's very protective about his cars. So that's a story for another time. The second thing is putting the bike in the rear seat area of the car. So you'll need to first put the rear seats down and then fit the bike inside the rear seat area. And again, like I said, you might smudge the rear seats, you might dirty it. So just put a sheet, put a blanket, something on it so that the bike doesn't touch the seat directly. If you have extra luggage, or if it's a smaller car, the bike may not fit exactly. So you might have to take off one of the wheels at the very least. Moving the front wheel is the easiest, like I said, so just do that, and in most cases you should be fine. Just remember to keep the bike gear side up if you're lying it down. So whatever side of the bike is where the gear is, where the gear sprockets are, you should not put weight of the bike on it. So when it's lying down, it should be facing up. So just remember that. That's another rookie error. I've done that. I just want to make sure you don't damage your gears that way. Cool. What else? Let's have a look. So some rear wheels require you to loosen a couple bolts to remove them. So in case you do have to remove your rear wheels, just remember it's a little bit more involved, like I said, so you may have to do a little bit of work there. All right, final tips for transporting your bike inside the car. Few things. Buy a boot liner. That can save you a little bit of grief if this is something that you want to do regularly-ish, and you don't want to invest in a rack specifically for this time being. Buy a boot liner. It's basically a sturdy ripstop type cloth that you can lay down in your car. It just saves you a lot of grief later on. The other thing I would recommend is get a pressure washer, and this is mainly if you have an MTB, which tends to get very dirty, or if you have a gravel bike, those tend to get very dirty as well. So just carry a portable pressure washer in the car with you, so you can hose it down before you put it in the car. That'll just make your life very easy. So last bit, can you fit 2 bikes inside a car? If you have a hatchback or a city car, that's likely not possible. If you have a SUV, sure, but even then you probably will have to remove both the wheels in order to be able to do that. And the last thing, when should you buy a bike rack? Because that's the next logical progression from doing these workarounds, because I do think that if you're going to be doing this more than even, let's say, thrice in a year, you should buy a bike rack. It just makes your life so much easier, and it's also safer for your car. Otherwise it just becomes a big pain loading it in, putting it out again and again. So that's when really you should buy a bike rack. There are many available. They start at around $100-$150, and so if you wanted to go for a cheap one, you could do that. If you wanted to go for a nicer one, I would recommend going somewhere in the range of $500 to $700, even $1,000, because the bike racks, they last decades, right? They're going to last at least multiple bikes that you might have if you buy a good one. So it's more of an investment than doing anything, but I'll talk about that in a later video. All right, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it useful. This is my 3rd video on this channel, All Bicycle Rider. If there's any feedback, I would really appreciate it. Right, have a nice one.